the sound people. I trust that all the mics are working, at least for the panelists. We would want to drive this very fast. As you all know, this is a Friday. We do not want to keep guys here. And of course, also we have to be ready for the official closing of the 9th Devolution Conference. So we would want to really take the shortest time possible for the 2 sessions, and also, but still be able to derive and get some value out of the conversations that we are going to have. I hope you are all set. I also understand there are some people who are required back in Kisumu for some Senate committee hearing. So therefore, with that, we have to keep in mind that, but still achieve what has brought us here. Those who are still coming in, I think we will just have to start, and the rest can be able to join us as we continue with this conversation. So the sound people, we are set. Tuko sawa? Okay. So as we do the planning, initially we were to start with the second session, but we shall stick to our initial plan, which is session 1 around LPG. So we shall still stick with our initial plan and we continue. So I'm being advised that just some 1 minute as they set up something, and then we can proceed. For those seated at the back, I kindly request you to please fill in the front seats. For those who are seated at the back, kindly come closer, fill in the front seats, at least from the second row, if you don't want to be the first one in the... Yeah, I can see the guy from Kilifi. Oh, he's good. Yeah. Okay, Gladys, we are set. I can proceed. Okay. Sawa sawa. As we all know, it's a Friday. I know some of us have dressed very, very formally, but of course you'd understand why. There's a gentleman who is in a, some t-shirt, ready for Friday, manenos. Some of us, we had a different brief, but you understand why. We are all suited up, yeah? You understand why. So I will just proceed with the protocols that have already been established since this devolution conference started. So I will not go into those protocols that we all understand. They have already been established. But what I can say is, once again, welcome to the 9th Devolution Conference here in Homa Bay County, Homa Bay High School. And this is a side event that has been convened by Kenya's premier energy regulator, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. So we are here courtesy of, some call it EPRA, others EPRA. I prefer to call it EPRA. Can we then proceed knowing that the regulator is referred to as EPRA, so that we have some uniformity? We agree? EPRA, yeah? EPRA. Sawa, ladies and gentlemen, imagine a home where the daily call or chore of gathering firewood or charcoal is a distant memory. A home where a clean, affordable, reliable flame is just a turn of a knob or away, transforming kitchens and improving lives. This is the future, ladies and gentlemen, that we are here to talk about today, this morning. A future where every Kenyan family has access to modern energy. Welcome to today's session this morning on county energy futures, a vital part of our larger conversation on financing equity and inclusion. Our host, as I'd mentioned earlier, is the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, and together we will explore how we can re-engineer our county governments to accelerate development and close the socio-economic divide. Ladies and gentlemen, I have not forgotten to introduce myself, but my name is Norman Mudibo, a trained journalist, communication professional, and I'm glad to be your moderator for the next two sessions. Now, our discussions this morning will be split into two powerful panels. I would want to imagine. I've looked at the experts, I've looked at those who constitute these two, and they are men and women who are very intelligent. So looking forward to having a very insightful conversation. I'm looking forward to also learning, educating as I do this. So therefore, both will be focused on the critical role our county governments play in bringing this vision to life. First, ladies and gentlemen, we will delve into the LPG growth strategy and infrastructure. We will explore the national plan to increase the use of liquefied petroleum gas, otherwise referred to as LPG, and how counties can become key players in this effort. We will, because we have the regulator here, examine the regulatory frameworks and infrastructure needed to make this a reality at the local level. So even for the panelists who will be here, let's try to really break it down for all of us. Tuongee lugha ya huko private sector. Kindly come on stage. Who is the rep? Is there? Yes, kindly. Of course, you'll have an opportunity to introduce yourself so that then the audience here can know who to refer questions. The hard questions too. So these are the guys who will ask the tough questions, yeah? For me, I'll just moderate. There is also the representative from the Clean Cooking Association of Kenya. What I have here is Eli Odhiambo, but I know, yes, Eli Odhiambo. Oh yes. That is a face that I have seen. So karibu sana. I hope I've not forgotten anyone save for the representative from the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and all that, yeah? So I would just like to start. Probably would have started with the rep from the Ministry of Energy. The sound people, you have confirmed that these mics are working. Yeah, in case of anything, I would look, I know you will be of assistance, so you'd want me to sit also, or yeah? Unataka nikae, yeah? Sawa. Yeah. Oh, here, okay. Yeah. Just before we start, I hope everyone has water. Yeah? Oh, I am informed that I don't have water. Okay. Yes, asante sana. So let's proceed with this. So I'll just give some context in this discussion. So as we all know, the journey toward a cleaner energy future is already well underway. Nearly a year ago, EPRA began implementing the LPG growth strategy. It is a bold initiative to transition 80% of the population from biomass to clean LPG by 2026. This ambitious goal, ladies and gentlemen, is rooted in the belief that everyone deserves to access a cleaner, healthier source of energy. This strategy was approved by the cabinet sometime in October 2023, and it is aimed at boosting our per capita LPG consumption from 6.5 kgs to 15 kgs. And of course, there are those 5 key pillars that include strengthening the LPG infrastructure, introducing LPG for schools, implementing subsidized cylinders, and of course, enacting legal and regulatory reforms. I'd like to start later. Now, how does, of course, I mean, there are changes that are anticipated and already we have seen in the sector. How is EPRA supporting the transition through regulation as Kenya implements this particular blueprint based on what I've been able to mention in terms of the key objectives and the key pillars around LPG infrastructure, LPG for schools, subsidized cylinders, and of course, legal and regulatory reforms where EPRA then comes in. Madam Stella.
Thank you very much, Norman. First of all, my name is Stella Opakas. I am the Deputy Director, Mid and Downstream Petroleum at the Authority. And I trained as a chemical engineer from the Gubkin Russian State University of Oil and Gas in Moscow. And I have a lot of interest in STEM, a graduate of the STEMazing Academy. So just to introduce the EPRA into the audience, as Norman gave us instructions, it's important we bring the language down to everybody to understand. So the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority is established in the Energy Act of 2019, and it also carries out the mandate of the Petroleum Act of 2019, that is CAP 314 and CAP 308. And the main function is for the authority to regulate the technical and economic sector, petroleum and energy sector in the country. Now, today we are here for LPG, just now to bring things into context. Now, in 2023, we had COP28. So from the global position, we know that we do not work as a country alone. We work with other nations. So in COP28, in the COP which was held in 2023 in Dubai, it was agreed that all countries need to increase energy efficiency, and 200 countries committed to this. And once they committed to this, one of the key areas which was accepted was clean cooking. So in sub-Saharan Africa, it was agreed that they will increase or promote clean cooking across the continent. At least by 2030, most of the population will have access to clean cooking. That is now globally. Now we come down, and LPG was seen as one of the key drivers to achieving this. We come down now to Kenya. Norman has already given us the government's commitment. So as EPRA, our main role is to ensure that there is now compliance. As you know, LPG is, if not well handled, it is very useful, but if not well handled, we can do what? We can have incidents and accidents related to LPG. And now when these are not well handled, we can they can create barriers to increasing that access, because you can find that it can create a culture of fear of adopting LPG. So one of the things that as a country we need to do is that we need to overcome the economic barriers, that is the affordability and accessibility. So the upfront cost of LPG can be very high for a big percentage of the people. The government has worked hard to ensure that the costs and the taxes and levies regarding LPG are reduced. If you remember, in the Finance Act of 2022, LPG was vatable at 8%. The import development levy was at 3.5%, and the railway development levy was at 2%. In 2023, the government, as Norman had earlier indicated, decided to adopt the growth strategy, and VAT was exempted. Import development levy was reduced to 2.5%. Railway development levy was reduced to 1.5%. Now, come to the Finance Act of 2024. All these were exempted. So you can see the government has committed to address the issue of accessibility and upfront costs by exempting the taxes which are applied to LPG. And next, we do have the challenge of culture, the fear of using LPG. I remember meeting some people from Zimbabwe, and they were asking, how is it that in Kenya, the people are accepting LPG? Because in Zimbabwe, what they are trying to push the LPG agenda, but people keep saying that it will cause explosions. Now, in the Petroleum Act, Section 86, before you put up a facility, an LPG facility, you need to apply for a construction permit. EPRA works with other agencies such as the Environmental Management Authority. We also work with the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and we also work with counties and the National Construction Authority. There's a reason why I mentioned NCA. So why we do this is because of safety. As we said, LPG, if it is not well handled, we can create a culture of fear, and then the adoption of adopting LPG in the country does not take off. And we know that in any country, there has been no major development which has not had an increase in energy use. Never. Whenever we've lived from the Stone Phase to the Iron Age, you found that the mode of fuel, the main fuel which has been consumed, changed from wood to coal. And then now when you move to the next stage of development, the mode of energy always changes. So energy is always linked to prosperity, and always the numbers must go up. So now to promote the culture of safety and adoption, we as the authority must always vet the applications and make sure that whoever is putting up either for this import, storage, as well as handling, as well as transportation of LPG meets the standards both for licensing and issuance of construction permits by the regulator. The other thing that we have to do is now, the other thing that the government did was to promote now legal and policy framework. So there has been a review of the LPG regulations, because as we know that emerging technologies have come up. Legal Notice 100 of 2019 was more or less addressing the issues then, but with time we found that we've had new technologies come up, such as reticulation of LPG. Reticulation is whereby, as Norman here earlier indicated, so for example, you go into your house, you turn your tap, you get water. So with reticulation, you go into your house, the LPG is piped. You turn on the knob, gas is, you get gas, as opposed to cylinders. Majority of us here in Kenya, we use cylinders, but those who live in flats have reticulation, and that has been taken up by, and all the new affordable housing units have LPG reticulation. We also have the introduction of autogas. So the government, towards June 2025, approved and gazetted Legal Notice 101 of 2025. Now, in Legal Notice 101 of 2025, we have made sure that we have introduced additional requirements, especially for reticulation and for autogas facilities, and we also have LPG installers and contractors. The people who are going to put, the people who are going to install or to connect would be the simpler word to use. The LPG for the units would need to be licensed. As a regulator, we already doing that with the electricians. Usually, if for any electrical work to be certified by the regulator, we need that the electrician is licensed. So when it comes to LPG, we will require that the installer is licensed by the regulator. So this is, we are working together with NITA, we are working together with the Engineers Board of Kenya, with the Kenya KETREB, that is the Kenyan Engineers and Technicians Regulatory Body. And also we have to bring on board TVETA because of the curriculum which is going to be in place. So this is going to be big to assure Kenyans of the safety of the people. Because and this is also going to, even for autogas, because some of these things you find that people learn through apprenticeship. So that's the regulation also looks into that, whereby we have categories. There are people, they have never entered a class. It is what it is. This is Africa. Not everyone had the opportunity or privilege, but they're very sharp.
Yeah. So you've set a very, very strong foundation, especially in this conversation that you're having. You've preempted a question which I was just about to ask you, and especially this was just around the autogas, the smart LPG meters, reticulation, and all that. But also, most importantly, is that nexus between the national government and the county governments. And this brings me now to Bwana Wilfred Baya. You know, how are counties, and this is based on the foundation that has been built by Stella, how are counties then enabling LPG adoption, either through the plans that you have, strategies or initiatives? How are you doing that? So that then, because this is, I mean, you can call it probably the last mile sort of initiatives, and I'd want to believe that is what it is, so that then we are able to achieve, those targets that I alluded to earlier. So I'd want you to make a comment before now I go to Bwana Eli to just also add on to what you'll be able to say. So Bwana Wilfred Baya.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Wilfred Baya, Director Energy, Kilifi County Government. I'm also privileged to serve as the caucus chair for County Energy Directors in Kenya under the Council of Governors Energy Technical Committee. I have over 10 years experience in the energy sector in relation to energy planning and development. I hold a Master's of Science degree on Energy Economics and Finance from the University of Nairobi. Going to the question that Norman has raised, energy is a shared function between the two levels of government, that is the county government and the national government. And the counties, for now, they have been developing their county energy plans, looking at the aspect of supply and demand, with a focus on clean cooking, especially in the adoption of LPG. So what counties have been doing, we have been looking on the expenditure analysis in terms of cooking at the county level, that is within the rural, peri-urban, and urban areas. So you realize in our country, Kenya, most of our households at the rural areas, they spend zero on fuel. So if you introduce LPG at the grassroots level or within the rural areas, you are going to get zero results because people are not spending any money. So in our planning, we have looked on the urban areas and peri-urban areas as specific areas whereby LPG can be one of the most solutions within the cooking sector. So within the urban and peri-urban areas, LPG is one of the components that we have given focus so that we can minimize the over-reliance on charcoal and biomass. So some of the things that we have done at county level is to leverage on the existing capacities. For instance, those vendors who are dealing with, they were doing supplies of charcoal and firewood, we have converted them to become the main people who are supplying LPG cylinders within the urban areas and peri-urban areas. Also, we have had discussions with the owners of petrol stations, and almost all the petrol stations within the urban areas and peri-urban areas, they do store LPG. So you find that there is the aspect of availability within the urban areas and peri-urban areas, which now makes it to be an available solution rather than the firewood which is being exhausted within the rural areas. Also, there is the aspect of we have been engaging investors to establish depots within the counties. For instance, Kilifi, we have the Taifa gas station, which is within the county, and they're able to supply gas to almost all the households within those areas who are interested. There is also the component of availability of the we can call it dispatch. If you are using LPG and your gas has been exhausted, we have the dealers who can easily deliver to your household. So it is very easier for you to be able to access LPG at household level. We have also had deliberations at county level with our hospitals, which most of them were relying on firewood and charcoal. And most of the areas where these energy resources were coming from, they have been converted to be a desert. There are no trees, there are no plants. So within our institutions, the hospitals and dispensaries, we have moved them to the use of LPG. And also even some secondary schools within the counties, they have already started adopting the use of LPG technologies. So you see the county, within our planning and our development and setting a budget, there is a key component that we have done on LPG, which is also accelerating on the adoption of LPG. But above all, the Ministry of Energy has set a target of achieving universal access towards clean cooking by the year 2030. And you see the counties, given that it's a shared function, our policies and strategies that we are developing at county level, we have realigned them with the national goals. So that means whatever the county we are doing, everything we are doing in order to achieve the Kenya Vision 2030, the target of 2030 in terms of achieving the clean cooking aspect. Yeah, so those are some of the strategies that the counties have been putting on a place, starting with the planning and setting budgets and liaising with stakeholders to implement specific targeted projects on LPG. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, listening to you, if I were to stop asking you questions, you've already answered your 3 questions, you know, all in one and all that. But still, I'd still want you to be there. And for me, it's really encouraging to see the kind of model that we've adopted. And to a certain degree, and this you can be able to respond to later, is it would also require some mindset shift. And especially if you're used to dealing with firewood, charcoal, and all that. I am sure there are certain campaigns that you've conducted, uko mashinani, you know, just for guys to appreciate in terms of what is in need for us then to adopt this new form, so to speak, of energy. And I would also want to define it as also one of the success stories in terms of community-driven models that Kilifi County has adopted, and would want to imagine probably these are some of the successes that you're also sharing with other counties. But coming to you, Ellie, having listened to, you know, Wilfred, how then can we be able to leverage this kind of infrastructure, as has been alluded to really entrench these community-driven models to just ensure that we're able to scale, you know, LPG access and use. I mean, your association is all about promoting and ensuring that, you know, clean energy is not only accepted, but we are able to walk the talk. So how is the Clean Cooking Association of Kenya then really promoting this working together with the two levels of government?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Monoban, for being available to moderate this session. So I'm Elio Odhiambo. I'm the National Coordinator at Clean Cooking Association of Kenya. I've been in the energy sector since 2009. I've worked in clean cooking projects. This is now my 16th year, doing different projects in clean cooking. So I hold a master's degree in social development and management. Yeah, and I've been in the NGO world for the last 24 years. So Clean Cooking Association of Kenya, for those who may want to know more, is a member-based association or organization that draws its membership from the private and the public sector. We are a non-profit making organization, and our mandate is to champion clean cooking, and also we support in cooking sector coordination. Our aim is to create a sustainable policy and market environment that enables access and adoption of clean cooking solutions, both at household level, at institutional level, and also clean cooking for commercial use. So for this to happen, as CCAK, as we are commonly known, we anchor our operations under 5 strategic pillars. The first one being policy, advocacy, and representation, where we look at how we can work with the different governments, both the national and the country level, to be able to have favorable policies that can favor implementation of clean cooking initiatives. We also have research, innovation, and knowledge management, our second strategic pillar, where we focus on knowledge management for sector utilization. We have another third pillar, which we refer to as standards and technical support, where in most cases we work with Kenya Bureau of Standards and EPRA to ensure that we have quality standards or we have quality products in the market that will fulfill the needs of end users when it comes to cooking. We have the fourth one, which is on market strengthening, trying to ensure that market systems work for delivery of clean cooking solutions to the end users and to ensure that they are also affordable. And lastly, the fifth pillar is around organizational development and institutional strengthening, whereby we look at strengthening CCAK as an institution and also members of CCAK to be able to stand and deliver on their mandate when it comes to delivering clean cooking solutions. Now, back to your question, Norman, I think as CCAK, as I mentioned earlier, we are the sector coordinator and also champions on clean cooking. We work very closely with the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and the county governments. So when it comes to issues around clean cooking, and to be more specific on the LPG, you find that adoption of clean cooking solution, if you look at the Kenya National Cooking Transition Strategy of 2024, there are a number of gaps that have been identified in that strategy, because that is now the overarching strategy that guides the clean cooking, the sector, cooking sector, in terms of how we approach our interventions. So we have the issue around affordability gap. We have issues around the supply gap and a number of issues around awareness. So you find that if you look at LPG uptake in Kenya, one of the issues that have been raised, or some of the issues that have been raised, is on the aspect of the cost. Getting the LPG, the burner, plus the cylinder, and also the aspects of refilling is slightly expensive to the majority, because most of the people we target to use these solutions are mainly in the rural areas and they are low income, so they find these appliances to be quite expensive. The other aspect is on limited distribution network of LPG, I think, as most of us have mentioned. So you find that this makes these solutions unavailable in most areas where end users would want to use them. The other aspect is also on safety. And I remember we were with you in, it was Serena. When we were, during the launch of the Car Safe Mtaani campaign,
Yes.
in April, I think it was on April 15th.
Yes.
And one of the things that have been mentioned over and over again is on the safety when we're using some of these things. So at CCAK, we come in to bridge the gap in terms of, one, we do advocacy, working with both the national government and the county governments to ensure that we have favorable policies, fiscal policies, different policies or regulations to ensure that there is a fair, there's a level playground for all the players to be able to undertake the initiatives when it comes to clean cooking. So the other aspect is on market development, where we have been able to do a number of market activation events, because uptake of LPG means that people need to be aware about the existence and the benefits of LPG as a cooking solution. And of course, during the market activation events, they are able to see live cooking demos on how these appliances are used. Then at the end of the day, they're able to see, okay, this thing can work. For those people who think it's not very safe to use, it can explode, then now they're able to see that this thing can be safely used. So we do market activations. We've had a number of events with my friend here, Banabaya, is my mentor. In Kilifi, we've done a number of activation events just to be able to show the public that these solutions work. We also work around infrastructure development. When we work with the counties, we try to identify where there are gaps. If we talk about distribution gaps, then how do we leverage on existing networks? Like we have women groups, we have youth groups, we have different entrepreneurs in those counties. How can we build their capacities to ensure that they can also include LPG in their product line, so that besides just offering maybe biomass stoves in their portfolio, then they can also bring in the LPG to become additional product. Then the other aspect is on also awareness, which we've also had road shows. A number of activities have been done just to ensure that people change their mindset about the LPG. They know about the benefits of LPG so that they're able to adopt it. Then last but not least, we've worked with both national and county government in terms of supporting development of strategies. We were part of the team that supported the development of the Kenya National Cooking Transition Strategy. At CCAK, we are just launching the Kilifi County Clean Cooking Energy Policy on 26th, when we'll be having the Clean Cooking Week in Kilifi. Bayo will be hosting us. And actually it's the first county that is now having a clean cooking energy policy, which have been developed from the county energy plan that was developed for the Kilifi County. So by having this clean cooking energy policy plus the county energy plan, it becomes very easy now for the counties to be able to ensure that clean cooking initiatives get their way into the CIDPs. And by having them in the CIDPs, it becomes very easy now for the county governments to be able to allocate budgets for clean cooking solutions. And also for ongoing training and demos, we've also worked with REREC in terms of establishing what we call clean cooking energy hubs. So for Kilifi region, we have Mutwapa Energy Center, where we have a clean cooking energy hub with various solutions. LPG be one of them, where people can walk in and see how these solutions work. They can be trained on the usage and also the safety aspects. So those are some of the things that we've done with the county, besides also sensitizing the executives of the counties and also our policy makers to be able to appreciate the importance of clean cooking and also to be able to ensure that some budget is allocated for clean cooking. Thank you, Norman.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellie. Just listening to the panelists here, the issue around collaboration, because no one entity, whether it is the national, county level or association, you can't do this by yourself. But I would just like to appreciate that there's the aspect of collaboration that is really, really required. But also having listened to, the issue around pricing, around safety, and this will be before I come to you, Stella. I just want now to get from an industry perspective, Stanley. Of course, your earlier speakers have alluded to the issue around safety, around pricing and all that, which of course will feature and would want, as we wrap up at some point, would want to hear from the regulator how the regulator then is working with the different players in this sector to ensure that these issues are addressed. Just as Ellie had mentioned, yes, in March, We had what we refer to as the National Stakeholder Conference, and this was a preamble to the launch of what we refer to as a car safe mtaani. So safety across, whether it is LPG and the other petroleum, products and all that. But from an industry perspective, what are some of those opportunities and challenges that you have seen, experienced as we push the expansion of LPG access across Kenyan counties before we come to the regulator? Yes, Stanley.
Good morning, everyone. Curtis Stanley is my name. Currently, director with Multi Energy Limited, pushing a brand LPG in the entire Nyanza and Western Kenya product called Mengas. Personally, I've been in this industry for the last 25 years. And I started as a salesman, selling from one point to the other. And I started while working for a company known as Cusco, that is Kenya Union Savings and Cooperative Limited. And I think that's where your brother, Edward Mudibo, was my CEO. And actually, these programs, we started with him. I headed a department known as Special Projects. And what we did was to push for availability and accessing clean energy, this particular 6 kg, to be able to be sold to cooperative societies, that is SACCOs. What we exploited was the credit facility then. We would go to cooperative societies like Stima, Mwalimu, would sell to them this product, and they would be given loans where they would take them at an average cost of about 3,900 then. And this was soft loans that were repayable between 4 to 10 months. And with that, the uptake was very good. I remember Stima Sacco, we sold up to 10,000 units then. And as time went by, we moved into photovoltaic, that is solar, which was a World Bank sponsored project, which I did. And I remember we went up to India for exchange programs. Thereafter, I also went into biogas, which we were still selling to cooperative societies. And we had to do an exchange program in Dhaka city, that is in Bangladesh. There was a program called, actually the current president, Yunus, was the head of Gramin Shakti program. It was very interesting that is a country where they lend even to the poor, the beggars. And interestingly, these beggars pay up these loans. And as time went by, in the year 2006, I resigned as an employee of Cusco. And I was in business in telecommunication. Then along the year 2008, we were transporting gas from Zambia. I remember we used to have challenges in getting gas locally. So we would transport gas from Zambia. We then came a few friends or partners, about 5 of us, and we decided to look for land in Kisumu. We tried to really locate. We tried Nakuru, we tried Naivasha, but we settled for Kisumu. In the year 2011, we acquired property there, and we acquired a construction license from EPRA. That is one of the steps that you have to go through for you to put up a facility. You have to do some public participation through NEMA, who have to approve such facilities to be put in place. And I remember there was an engineer, Gitonga, who I think is also now in the industry, and Mr. Edward Kinyua, who is the current director of that particular department. We were able to put up the facility, and we opened our doors in the year 2014. Interestingly, we only started with 5,000 cylinders. It was an interesting journey because at that time, when we started, we were not very conversant with the LPG. So the first 5,000 units we brought from Turkey, iGas, apparently they did not release the gas inside the cylinders. So we refilled them, and then they went to the market. People were rejecting them because you'll only get air coming out of it and you will not get gas. The first rollout, and there you are, you have challenges. But along the way, we were able to sort it out. And we've grown over the years. To date, we have, I think, 1.2 million cylinders. And we are covering the entire Nyanza, the entire Western, South Rift, and North Rift. Indeed, there are many opportunities because we didn't realize that the uptake of LPG would be fast the way we have seen. We have been able to double in terms of our outreach. And to date, I think If you go by the calendar of companies that are pushing gas in this country, I think we are top 10. And probably in Nyanza, I think we are leading in terms of coverage. If you're walking around or driving, you could see some orange cylinders. They're called main gas. Main gas is a product of multi-energy, and basically main gas means multi-energy gas. Yes, I know women have always been against us. Why did we call it main gas and not women gas? And we say it is actually we men gas. So women are covered in that. So when we go to opportunities, we realize that the uptake is good with the reduction of taxes, that is VAT, which we really appreciate the government stepped in, has been able to help us to move gas to the rural sector. We came up with a strategy called Men Gas Mashinani. Men Gas Mashinani, we went through women groups who would co-guarantee each other to be able to acquire gas. So you'd find that they're buying 10 pieces and they would co-guarantee each other so that if you're not able to pay, they pay for you. And by that, we made them stockists. I remember there's a lady called Grace somewhere in Mbale. Grace was a retired teacher. We went there. Personally, those days I used to go for marketing. We approached Grace. She had a small shop. And when we told her to stock gas, she was like, no, I don't have enough money. We told her, we'll start you up. So we gave her 10 cylinders, the small ones, and about 5 of the big ones. Interestingly, on the first month, Grace was able to bag a net income of 11,000. Grace was so amused, and she was so happy that in all her life, as a retired teacher, she had tried business, but she had never been able to save that much. So along the way, she continued doing business. Today, Grace is earning a minimum of 86,000 shillings as a retired teacher. We call her Men Gas Ambassador because it's a true story. It's really touching because we were able to change her life. We also did what is called Men Gas Vitongoji. We went through Kisumu. We looked for guys who were able to stock cylinders, and we pushed them. And we ran a project with EPRA far back in the year 2022, which I would like EPRA to revisit. For you to be able to sell gas within Kisumu County, you had to be given a stockist license or a stockist certificate, and that one would only come from a brand owner. So together with the Kisumu County, we were able to instill some discipline in the business of doing LPG. Because if you went there, you'd be told, whose product are you selling? Do you have their license? And we realized from that point again, EPRA went into licensing each and every step of doing business. So for you to be a transporter, you must be licensed. For you to carry the bulk, you must be licensed. For you to have a shop, you must be licensed. And even for you to drive that vehicle which is transporting gas, you must be licensed. So with this, I'm sure if EPRA pushes it into other counties, it will still instill discipline. And we also say gas is lethal, gas is dangerous. A lot of awareness and training is necessary because sometimes you drive around and you see a lady selling clothes also stocking gas, and she's actually storing those gas within the shop. You can imagine what happens just in case of anything. So what we are saying here is that, yes, we have had challenges, and some of the challenges in the LPG sector is that counties sometimes are a bit hostile to businesses. You realize that within Nyanza and Western, we will be having about 10 or so counties. And the parking fees, the distribution licenses, mention them, the permits, you pay each and every county. From Kisumu County to here, I would say within the 2 counties, if I tell you what we've paid in terms of licenses, it's crazy. We are talking about over 2 million. Who is going to be able to invest and do business when those are the kind of licenses we are talking about? I am sure if it is reviewed, then if I have a distribution license and I've paid Kisumu, why would I pay again in Homa Bay County? And why would I again pay in Migori County? That's quite exorbitant for us. The other issue that we are talking about is that fiscal planning within the counties. We need them to up their game because you realize that I have put up a facility and along the way, other building structures are coming up next to me. They are not allowed to be next to that kind of facility. And physical planning should really be involved in this so that anybody who is being given permits or licenses to put up constructions, then they check what kind of facilities are there. We are talking about reinforcements of the regulations. You'll realize there's some players in the industry who are licensed and they'll still go into the business of cross-filling. You see, once you license me, you believe I'm going to do clean business. But at the end of the day, behind the back, what they do is interesting. I know EPRA has devolved their branches into different counties, and I'm sure with time, they'll be able to nab this kind of people. We have also been trying to see how to help just a minute. When we come to prosecution of offenders, of the misdemeanors or people who practice contrary to the regulations of the LPG, you realize that most of the ODPPs are not well conversant with the legal notice, so that when charges are taken to them, they are not able to approve such charges. Because nowadays the procedure is that the ODPP will have to be the first one to see the charges and be able to approve if they will proceed to the next level. Like recently, we had an interesting case in Siaya. A truck was arrested, ferrying a number of cylinders. That particular truck was detained in a police station. It was sealed. But at the end of the day, the ODPP said the truck is licensed, and so we are going to release the truck. That truck was carrying illegally refilled cylinders, which to me is an offense which should be charged in court. But the ODPP said the truck should be released. And the regulator was at odds on what to do, because how would you be the one to say it's not supposed to be charged and that does not lie with you? So on that, we realized that the ODPP needs to be educated. They need to be aligned with the new regulations so that they know how then do we help. Because in this industry, we need a lot of sanity. Because the law says the brand remains the owners, or rather the brand owner has the responsibility of the liability in case of anything. If the cylinder explodes, regardless of where it was refilled, the owners remain with me. The other big challenge that I will tell you is that the cost of the cylinder is not easy and it's not simple. Once we purchase those cylinders, we subsidize because the regulation does not require us to sell, they require us to take deposits. That means you subsidize that particular product. On the second level is that once you have subsidized that cylinder and you have rolled in the market, the illegal players come on board. Like I say, every month I do between 10 to 15,000. I facilitate them to buy 2 new trucks to be able to do illegal business. And by doing illegal business, meaning they refill other people's cylinders without their authority, and they are able to sell these cylinders in the market. So for one, that is counterfeit. And 2, once my new cylinder rolls into the market, you realize the old ones come back, which needs to be revalidated. Again, when I revalidate this, I will be talking about a minimum of 1,000 shillings. So I've already lost 1,000 on subsidizing, and then I'm again losing another 1,000 on revalidation. And the most interesting bit that now beats us is that one time in Kakamega, a retailer tells us, kwa nini nyinyi main gas yenyu iko bei kali kushinda hii main gas? That was an illegally refilled cylinder who is selling cheaper than my own product. And so that beats the logic that this investment does not add value at the end of the day if you really look at it into the future. And so I call upon the regulators to be able to help on this and really stamp the authority. The other area we have challenge is with the security, and that is basically the police. Again, we were running an operation in Kakamega, and we tried to test to see if they really cooperate with the illegal refillers. So we call the police boss and we tell him, we have noted a car next to a particular place, please give us the enforcement. And in less than 10 minutes, that truck had driven off. So that tells you clearly they're on payroll. But I'm happy because I'm in touch with the enforcement officer at EPRA, who has organized for security committee meetings within this region, so that they are able to address, and they're also addressing the issue of Siaya, where the police interfered with the evidence. So clearly, it is not an easy one even for them, because other players in the industry who are supposed to help them are not helping them to do this.
I can see Stanley Stanley has really prepared, and whoever, and sorry for the introduction. Okay. So this was very deliberate to ensure that you sit near the regulator, because as you're outlining some of the challenges, and of course there is a very good story that we've explained, especially around Grace in Mbale and all that. Those are the kind of stories, and especially even as third-party endorsements, has it worked? Has it worked? Grace, as we've rightly mentioned, would be one of the ambassadors, especially in that area, where you're able to use such ambassadors to be able to push this agenda. But yes, the issue around pricing, the issue around education is something that I've picked right across this conversation. And as you are articulating those issues, the opportunities and also the challenges, I was observing Stella here. As you can see, the book is almost full because she was really taking care and really listening to you very keenly as you bring this out, because it is in the interest of everyone in this room that this particular program gets to really succeed, and we be a model for for folks out there. As you had mentioned, we had to go to Zambia and other markets to get gas. How about us being those that guys will be looking forward to learning and all that? But there is education. There is the issue around pricing. There is the issue around unfair trade practices. And please allow me just to allow the regulator, because I know, she has to dash for a Senate hearing back in Kisumu. But please allow me, and also you will share that. Allow me to just give Stella, the opportunity to just respond to some of those issues that you have raised. And if time will allow, I don't know if time will allow, Carol, are you around? Will time allow? This is a very interesting conversation, so that then we can be able to wrap up and give the second session panelists at least some opportunity. But this is a very interesting conversation, as you may note. So, Stella, there's some issues that Stanley has raised. Being an investor in this sector, yes, he has alluded to some successes, but there's still some challenges, which also Ellie mentioned. Wilfred, Stanley has said, saa zingine munakaa ngumu. So hapo been thrown under the bus. But I guess that these are issues that will be addressed so that then we are able to move forward. Stella.
Thank you, Norman. I think I will first start with what Mr. Ellis said on safety of LPG. One of the mandates of the regulator is to inspect all accidents that emanate from the sector. And when we investigate LPG accidents, safety, I can almost say 70% comes from handling, poor knowledge of handling, all the accidents we have investigated. And I can give, like in Nyeri, we have 3 cases where we have lost children. Small babies have been left, mothers have left the gas burning, they go and do other things with babies in the house, then the babies burnt to death. So the handling is a challenge, and our public education team is actively involved in that. So I think even the handling safety, I think the language you use must be very careful, such that we do not get the mentality that maybe the cylinder is not safe. The handling has been a problem, because sometimes someone just decides to gift people LPG but does not tell them how to use the LPG. So handling is an issue. And then the appliances like the burner, we find that sometimes people get low quality. But as I said in the beginning, Legal Notice 101 of 2025 the quality of accessories which are going to be used in LPG, if they're found to be not out of standards, then the one selling them will be held culpable. On physical planning, I think that was something I am happy that Stanley mentioned it. I wanted to mention it, but I'm happy that it came from the investor himself. I think that is an area where counties really need to focus on, because investors into these counties will not come where they feel like the investments are going to be used as prey, and they're not going to be supported. So if counties are going to look at investments as prey to raise revenue, then I think counties, we really need to look into this. And the other challenge which investors have in the sector is that counties, unfortunately, sometimes do not really follow what is in the CIDP, especially when it comes to physical planning. Because you find that an area has been designated as industrial, a light industry area, and then within, maybe because it's a political regime, it is instantly changed to a residential area. And this investor was here before. So now, when we're doing our audits, we find that the safety distances are not being met. And then now the people who have come there after he had made his investments, they start saying he's not safe. Don't mind that they're the ones who found him there. And then again, owing to safety requirements, it is not safe. So this is the physical planning departments of counties really have to look into this. It is important to put long-term plans which can assure investors that the investments they're making are going to be safe. Cross-filling, this is, if you would hear Stanley Stone, it is something which it is paining him. And in the Legal Notice 101 of 2025, if you do not have cylinders, you cannot put up a construction facility, a storage and handling facility, because, as he said, he has invested in cylinders, and even in the first instance, he had to go all the way to Turkey to get cylinders. And in the current system, what is happening is that we have local cylinder manufacturers. And so even the government is looking at making the cost of manufacturing LPG cylinders locally more affordable too. In fact, even it is now cheaper to buy local cylinders as opposed to importing cylinders. I think, Stanley, you can agree with me on that. So when it comes to cross-filling, right now, the authority is not, for you to get a license to operate a storage and handling facility, you must demonstrate that you have the cylinders, because such investors, someone has invested, but someone else is riding on them, you know? There's a tapeworm, so to say, on them, sucking all their money out of them. On ODPP, I think it's safe to say that our Department of Public Education is having various engagements with the Office of the ODPP. We've had that in Nairobi, whereby officers from all over the region, Nairobi region, have been called, and they're going around the country being sensitized on these regulations. So, you know, our DG is a lawyer, so whenever he's with them, they speak the same language very well. And on cross-filling, our DG is very particular, because he has said we are not going to issue any license to someone who does not have the right number of cylinders. So one thing, when we're here, let us promote enforcement, because our regulations are very well written on paper. But then now, as he has said, some of the challenges, EPRA sometimes goes, the regulator goes, EPRA, I forgot the instructions he gave us earlier. EPRA goes and tries to implement this, but now you find that later on, as he said, the person was already informed, kuna kujo, yeah? So get your truck out of there very early. So it's going to be a lot of collaboration. It's key, because safety is key. We need to ensure that people reap more from the benefits of this product, as opposed to people staying away from it because of the malpractices and misunderstanding which might not have been properly communicated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm being told that time is up, but kindly allow me to give each less than a minute so that then we can wrap this up and allow the second panel discussion to take place in the interest of time, so that then we can also be ready for the official closing of the 9th Devolution Conference. We can start with Ellie. Less than a minute. Some takeaway message for the audience, but this conversation will continue. As you can already realize, that time is not enough. It is not something we can finish in 1 hour, but again, at least we've reached somewhere. Yes, Eli.
Thanks, Norman. Just based on what Madam said. So I think as CCAK, we convened the Interministerial Committee on Clean Cooking, where we bring different ministries together. So I think one of the things that I will ensure that we do in the next IMC meeting is to ensure that we also bring on board the office of the DPP, so that we are able to sensitize them on what they need to do and what they can do to support the clean cooking initiatives. I think it's one department that has been missing, but we'll also reach out to them and ensure that they are brought on board. Otherwise, I think it has been a very fruitful discussion. But allow me to take this opportunity to also welcome all the participants to the 2025 Clean Cooking Week in Kilifi on the 26th, 27th, and the 28th. So the theme is implementation of sector strategies and county energy plans, focusing on transformation, inclusivity, and investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bona Wilfred.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say that devolution is working, and the county governments have become very active in the energy sector as we stand today. There is a lot that we can achieve if we work together, especially if you look at the sector for LPG. At the county level, we see it as a sector for economic empowerment for our youth and women. We have the enforcement units, and we have the physical planning and development control. I believe if EPRA and the national government can give us the standards, it can be easier for us to coordinate all the other issues that needs to be done at county level. Thank you, be blessed, and karibuni Kilifi for the Clean Cooking Week. Asanteni.
And finally, the investor.
Thank you very much, moderator. Usually we say gas sio gas kama sio main gas. Gas sio gas kama sio main gas. That is if you're in this region of Western Nyanza, South Rift and North Rift. We are happy because we are changing lives and we are improving people's living standards. True speaking, the national government strategy for LPG growth is real because, as Madam Stella mentioned, we are talking about reticulation, we are talking about autogas, we are talking about conversion of government institutions into using LPG from biomass. With all this, I'm sure we are going to have more opportunities because even us in this region, we have been able to do so much in transforming institutions and colleges. For example, like Maseno University, we did that about 5 tons. And it's been good since 2016. So there are more opportunities. Please feel welcome. And county governments, I'm sure you're going to take note that you need to be friendly to people who are serious investors. Don't compare us with the Mamamboga who you can harass here and there, but look at us as partners. I don't have much to say, but again, this is a very good opportunity. And if they are replicated, I will be very much willing to come across and accompany you and share the same experiences in future. Asante sana.
Thank you so much. I'm sure Wilfred did not hear that, and I will not remind him. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Asante sana, for the insights that you have shared. Of course, you also touched certain aspects which then would bring us into the second session, which is around the fiscal planning. But this juncture, I just want to say, asanteni sana. We shall continue this conversation off the stage, and because we are not having a break, tunataka tumalize hii maneno. It's a Friday. Tuimalize chap chap. I would like to just ask the second round of panelists to just be ready, and then we proceed in the next 1 minute or so as this very distinguished panelists exit the stage. Wapigieni makofi. Thank you so much. Asanteni sana. Yeah, thank you very much. Iko mtu ya picha ya kutandika hii watu picha, ama tutafanya when we finish the other one? Okay, asante sana. So Ladies and gentlemen, I just want now to invite the next speakers so that then we are able to, proceed. At least because I've interacted with some of the speakers, I can call them, because they'll have the opportunity to introduce themselves, I can call them by their first name. Dr. Anna Mwangi, karibu sana. Madam Cynthia Mohati, yeah? Nimepronounce mzuri. Welcome. Dr. Stephen Ikiki. Nimepronounce hiyo mzuri. There was also meant to be, let me just confirm here, Bwana Niton Munyolo. I know also you have to rush to Kisumu, but would very much appreciate to get some insights from you. Is there any representative from COG? Any rep from COG? If not there, we proceed. Any representative from Nyeri County? Not there, then we shall be able to proceed. I hope this, yeah? Okay. I'm told it's Bernard Osawa. Uko hapa? Ah, very good, very good. Sijui kama mtaniongeza kiti hapa? Yeah. Asante sana. And just ensure that we have enough mics. Sorry. Asante. You can add it, and then you can just bring this. Yeah.
The microphones.
Yeah. Of course. You can just bring this the table, yeah. Yeah, so hii tumesema ni marathon, eh? Yes, so once again, we'll just like to dive into our panel 2 discussions. And as you all are aware, this will be around fiscal planning. And already in our first session, we had alluded to this collaboration and how county governments also can really, really help. So I would like to start with Newton. Newton is the Manager, Pricing and Competition, EPRA. And the questions will just be around the recently gazetted Energy Integrated National Energy Plan 2025 and other frameworks that bolster energy access and reliability in counties. And then, of course, we'll delve into the discussion, but would like to give you this opportunity to just start us off, context setting, before I invite the next speakers. Bwana Newton.
Thank you, Norman. I think, as you said, my name is Newton Munyolo. I serve as the Manager, Pricing and Tariffs at the Authority, EPRA. Yeah, I think the topic today was about fiscal planning, but I think I can start in the broader planning perspective. I think at the county level, they do what we call integrated development planning, which is a CIDP, County Integrated Development Plan. As Ikiki will tell you, that's like Vision 2030 for the county, although it's 5 years, but they do that. And then they also do sectoral plans. Sectoral plans could be water plans, energy plans. They also do annual plans, and then they also do planning for the budgeting and the fiscal expenditure. So I think what has been missing is that most of them have been doing CIDP. They have CIDP, of course. But I think the issue about sectoral planning, and for this particular issue, is about planning for the energy. Because in the County Government Act, they're supposed to do sectoral plans, and the sectoral plans are supposed to fit into the CIDP. So I think while the planning has been being done at the national government level, especially for energy, as the Minister of Energy, you find that the document that has been generated for many years, what is called the Least Cost Power Development Plan, has been limited to a certain form of energy called electricity, and has also been limited to at the executive level of the national government. So I think the Energy Act 2019 introduced an integrated energy plan, and is supposed to be done both at the county level and at the national government level. And it's supposed to be more inclusive. It provides an avenue for where counties are going to generate their own county energy plans, and the same will be cascaded through the governor, National Assembly, and then it goes through the cabinet secretary in charge of energy. So that is a regulation that has been developed and has been gazetted, I think, this financial year. So we expect going forward that we no longer have a CIDP, but we'll have county integrated plans, and county energy plans. That's going to be the framework for sector planning in energy.
Hello. Okay. So, thank you just for that very brief countersecting. With all these plans that we're coming up with, and I'm looking at where money comes from, Kiki. The focus now is around with all these plans in terms of just pushing access, across counties and all that. Resource allocation and public investment planning by the government at the national and county levels. Explain how fiscal transfer mechanisms can be redefined to enable, or what is it at the national treasury level? How you are trying to really ensure there is more collaboration in terms of resource allocation or sharing for that matter, or looking at financing models that work, so that then we are able to really achieve this agenda, prioritize this agenda around pushing energy access, but most importantly, one that is affordable. Of course, in the first panel, the issue around pricing, the issue around affordability really, has been raised or was raised. But at the where you sit, how are you going to, or how are you trying to really ensure that you have a system, a collaborative system between the two levels of government to ensure that even as we come up with these plans, we are able to push access, push affordability, but also provide the requisite infrastructure for investors to thrive. To you, Dr. Stephen Kiki.
Thank you, Norman. Thank you, Norman. My name is Stephen Ikiki. I work with the National Treasury. I'm a director investment. I've been there for a few years, around 20 years now, or 21, thereabout. In terms of education, if we are to go to that side, I'm a mathematician by training, so I love numbers. I don't like questions. And that not to mean I don't like accountability, but I love numbers. So tell me 1 + 1, 1 + 2, and I'm home. In terms of the questions, okay, in other life, I represent government in several boards. I'll be in REREC that deals with these energy issues. I work a lot with EPRA in areas of upstream, and therefore I'll be part of TALO issues, now GAF. And I also represent government in Kenya Power, in Kenya Railways, New KCC, and Kenya Roads Board. I'm quite in that space, and which is a bit wide, okay, which is quite wide, and in terms of the scope. Now, when I come to the question of physical transfers and how they can be done to improve their efficiencies in that area, is quite a complex question, because when you look at the models that we normally use for transferring resources to counties, is that the CRA will propose a formula that is approved by Parliament, and that formula usually is fixed on a way of transferring resources. Once those resources are agreed and transferred to counties, they don't say it will be used for this purpose or that purpose. There will be formula to look at population, formula to look at the poverty, formula to look at regional size, the land mass and whatever, but they don't have any specific one that looks at energy side of things. But even if we have one, counties see this as a formula to get money. but they don't use that to say, because I got money because my area is extremely poor and got more, I'll use this money to improve the poverty levels. No, they look at, I got this money and this money is for me, now I can use it to do other plans. So that becomes really a bigger issue for us at the national level, because the focus from our leadership in the county level is not, I don't know what to say. So what we like to see is maybe what can work more is to look at that formula and model something that becomes like a conditional transfer. That we have this conditional transfer that will purely focus on moving energy resources forward. Because when you look at health, although it has not worked very well, we did some conditional transfers for medical equipments. They have worked well in a few hospitals, but when you get those medical equipments, you can't divert them. When you get that funding for a specific hospital in a county, you can't divert it. So if you look at that medical transfer, I think it can work. In terms of the other question of how to attract investments within those counties, that's quite another complex one, because we look at the budgeting side of things. Counties have very many plans. They have the major one, which is the CNDP. They have the county energy plans. These documents are necessarily not linked. They are also, for obvious reasons, not necessarily used for planning and budgeting. They are documents that is a requirement by law, but they are not necessarily documents that are used for budgeting. So we have very nice plans in this country that we don't put them into actual work. And therefore, our planning becomes of kind of erratic. I don't know what we can really do to enforce that. That I think is for all of us here to discuss and think about it, because our planning really is a real issue. Another issue is we plan, I don't know whether to say to fail, because our focus is to construct, but you don't think about maintenance of what we construct. So we really think about the future of that building. You see very nice things built, very nice roads built, whatever energy centers built, but you don't do much. The other tool that counties can use in their budgeting, and is quite a nice one for purpose of driving the energy side of things, is energy centers. We have a very good tool that is shared between the counties and the REREC, Rural Electrification Authority, that they can use to train our youth on how to make use of those biogas and drive the use of energy centers. I wish we can reduce use of trees, use of forest, and we go to clean energy sorts of things. But for you to drive that, you must have those entrepreneurs who understand the business, who can be trained. Training can easily attract a lot of funding, and it is one of the best things. PPPs, I would say, is a good thing, but quite complex. When I look at energy investments, they are quite heavy on land, and the counties are very rich on land. I wish they can enter into these PPPs, provide land, de-risk the project from multiple issues, and then they'll be able to make their money out of that process. But as whether we get there, it's a totally different issue. They can also ring-fence their own resources, maybe ring-fence a percentage. There's also some avenues in REREC whereby they can put resources together and extend electricity, extend biomass, extend biogas, which when I was a director in REREC, they were already being utilized.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I like the way we have started. So we have this master plan, which Niton has alluded to. Daktari, you've alluded to certain funding challenges and all that. So, how can counties strike a balance between generating revenue through levies and fees? And earlier on in the discussion, you had, the complaint from the investor. I hope he's still around here. But still keeping energy prices, affordable and all that, which then now brings me, and for the ladies, don't feel left out on this discussion, giving the gentlemen their first priority. Because that discussion that Daktari has alluded to in terms of the funding option, the funding challenges. Yes, we have a plan, but also we have to look at both the two levels of government. How are we going to fund this and be able to achieve this? It brings me now to Bernard. Bernard, who is from the private sector, KEPSA to be specific. So that then the question to you is the private sector investment. What are some of those scalable investment models that the private sector, of course, working with other players, can be able to use to accelerate the adoption of affordable and reliable energy in counties? Before I come to the two ladies of now that the issue around the plan has been sorted, the issue around funding has been sorted, now is to push uptake and all that. But there's the issue around funding. What are those models that we can be able to adopt so that then the work that both Dr. Anna and also Cynthia will do will make sense and guys can be able to appreciate? To you, Bernard.
Thank you, Norman. My name is Bernardo Sawa. I'm the chair of the Energy and Extractive Sector Board, KEPSA, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. What KEPSA does is to improve the business environment. It's interesting, Dr. has alluded to some very fundamental challenges with the counties, especially on the planning side. And I think what's important, being involved with the counties, is for them to realize that energy is an enabler, because what they do is they do the CIDP, the ADP, all those strategies for health, water, and all that, but not knowing that they need energy to power that. So energy comes as a last item, says, oh yeah, we have the building, we have all this, but where's the power, where's this? So that's a challenge that I think we'll continuously have to deal with to get them to appreciate. But back to your question, I think investments or money goes where there's opportunity. So as much as the private sector sees opportunities, the challenge is we are not completely aligned with the county sometimes. As Stanley mentioned, the road that we see is not because the counties don't want to support what's happening. It's that they don't understand the full picture of the implications of what they are doing in the end. That notwithstanding, there are several models that the private sector have been using that are scalable. They are being scaled, albeit slowly. So one of the things is a mini or solar-powered mini hybrids, for example, that there are already several companies working with certain development partners are doing to reach far-flung places. Of course, the grid has taken care of all the central places, but they're underserved and all that. One of the things that's being done is the solar mini-grid hybrids together with clean cooking that Eli was talking about. The other one is pay-go, solar home systems. There are several companies, apparently they're all yellow, but they're all over the place, from Mkopa to Sun King and all those guys. Pay as you go. It also allows the consumers to pay bit by bit, but they reach out there. But there's also now pay as you go LPG. So from the last session, I don't know why they didn't mention that, but there's pay go LPG so that's helping reach out. One of the things that we'd like to push for as a private sector is county facility energy service companies. Counties have several facilities that they are paying for from KPLC, or they have even their street lighting that they try to do themselves, but they can't maintain. Remember what he said, they build them, but they can't maintain them. So if we'd go the approach of county energy service company, where they tender it out to a private entrepreneur who will install it, maintain it, because they know the revenues will come from a properly working system, that would be scalable across all the 47 countries, across all the market centers that they have. So that's an opportunity that we'd look at. Clean cooking, I think that's one. I mean, there are several things from induction cookers to all that are being looked at. So we are not just stuck on electricity, it's energy service to the underserved, and that's important. Energy, I mean, counties are coming up with industrial parks and hubs. And one of the emerging areas for investment by private sector is we call them commercial and industrial system, which are captive systems basically. So I'd build a power plant to supply that sort of establishment. That's one thing that can be scaled up. And of course, the latest that people are talking about, getting jobs, productive use of energy. We are looking at, dedicating funds, investing to set up productive energy uses. So cottage industry in the countryside and all that. It's an emerging opportunity, but which is scalable, but they can be accelerated if we are aligned with the counties. Thank you.
So thank you. Okay, so we've heard about the plan, the funding challenges, but also the options and the models that can be able to be pushed or really explored. We are still sticking with this topic, and especially now around what are those fiscal incentives? And this, I'm looking at Cynthia. Do you have any recommendations in terms of the either policy adjustments or fiscal incentives that counties, now that the issue around counties and their facilitative role to ensure that we are able to push LPG uptake in the counties is really, really a much talked about topic. So what are some of these policy incentives or adjustments that counties should prioritize to make these renewable energy projects more viable for local entrepreneurs and also communities? Madam Cynthia. Are we able to? Oh, yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cynthia Muhati from Kenya Renewable Energy Association, KEREA, the CEO. I'm also founder member at She Logistics and Transport Association. My background is supply chain. Where I've done my supply chain within the energy space all my career life, hence why I find myself in this platform. A lot has been said actually on the things that I would have contributed to on what's happening at the county levels, considering the county energy plans, CIDPs, and generally looking at what's happening at the national level, which brings us together from the county levels. And I think a lot of work has been done in the background in terms of that. But now what's left is the implementation for the counties to do their work, for the counties to ensure that they're actually embracing our renewable energy, that is. So KEREA is a business member organization. We represent the private sector within the space as a conduit to the national government. And that's basically anything to do with energy. We work a lot with the Ministry of Energy, with EPRA, other DFIs, just to ensure that the gospel of renewable energy is spread, considering we have to also hit the 100% target in 2030, So I would say that there's a lot happening in terms of the incentives. But going back to the county level, what can they do better? Already there are funders out there, there are grants out there. The government is also providing funds, towards these activities. But we're saying the county level needs to really come up and step up. I think I had someone also put that across and be able to say, if we really want to push this agenda to the next level, then it means that we have to embrace it. One, come up with proper plans according to what is in the CEPs and say, with this that we have put in place or these plans that we have in place, are we able to achieve it or not? Communicate early, you know, with the public so that they can be able to, when I say communication, really I mean like sending out tenders, things like that early when they're doing their planning, so that even at the back of our minds as the private sector, you're able to say, I'm able to do these projects, and also give a plan of those projects that are supposed to be done within a specific financial year, or block the years that are blocked for that specific project, so that even with that, the private sector or even themselves are able to apply for funding. So for me, I think that's one really key thing, because whenever you speak about what are we going to do about renewable energy, what are we going to do about having these plants, it always goes back to, is there funding, you know? And then now just coming down to the county level, we've seen how RBFs have been working. RBFs are result-based financing, which if you go like to the clean cooking sector, if you go like to the pay-go sector, you know, these models, development partners have come up with several plans, financing organizations, the equities, etc., where they're able to give you a plan of payment, one, and possibly a plan of payment, of course, to the consumer, but to the distributor or to the manufacturer, you come to an agreement, and it's kind of, this is what you're going to charge, because they want to increase the affordability, they want to increase the accessibility and all that. So I think county levels should also look at, what can we do on our part? We have the funding, you know. So if Ikiki here ensures that the resources are sent out on time, you know, they're given adequate funding, the county level should also go back and say, what impact can we create? And for me, that's one way that you can actually make the livelihoods of your people better. You can even come up with incentives of saying, like, between 20 to 50,000, this and this is what you're supposed to do, and this is supposed to be the result, you know? So there are things that are done at national level. But can we also come down at the county level and say, we can come up with our own small RBFs within the communities and adapt some of these things? And sometimes even, like I saw somewhere the other day, Makueni County, they have installed a solar water pump that is supposed to like take care of the county, you know. Okay, of course it will not do like everywhere, but you know, it's a step ahead. So going back to the same conversations, if you do that and you put it out there to your members, those are basically incentives you're giving to your people and saying, these are the results we are looking at. This is the impact we are looking at. What are you able to do? Because they cannot, as a county, they cannot do it themselves if they do not involve us. So where Kerea comes in, we do policy advocacy matters, and a lot has been spoken here again about policy advocacy, about the energy plans. But capacity building comes in question. It's huge. Capacity building starts from right from the grassroots up to the top. It will start with, let's talk, let's educate ourselves, let's make sure that this understanding of where this begins and where this ends, then that can be inculcated into all the other members of the county. But you're saying the county has an upper hand to really make sure that they embrace renewable energy in their counties, considering all the available sources of funding that's happening.
So we have the plan, the funding is there, but as you have heard, there are challenges. But again, as we have heard, there are those options that can be explored. But even with those options that are there. We've just heard from Madam Cynthia that you need to capacity build and all that. I now want to come to Dr. Anna Mwangi. KenGen has been at the front line, playing a really central role in terms
in Olkaria. And if you're not familiar with Olkaria, you're familiar with Hell's Gate National Park. So when you access the Hell's Gate National Park, that's where you find KenGen operations at Olkaria Geothermal Field. Now, what is interesting is that even from the name Hell's Gate, it was named by the locals because they were not understanding what type of natural resource is this. And I'm sure they were not thinking natural resource. They were more thinking of this is a danger, these are spirits, and as an African, you do want to keep safe. However, we have studied the system to see that you can be able to get heat, and heat that converts or has steam, and steam that is able to generate electricity. That's how geothermal is able to serve us to have electricity in the grid. Now, what has happened over a long time, since those 1950s, the first power plant was in 1981 of 45 megawatts. So why that delay? It's because that you really need to understand the subsurface. And I like what Dr. Ikiki said, that he likes numbers. There are people who also, like myself, who like rocks. So, and I've heard also from the clean cooking team, you try and utilize more cleaner technologies to cook. So I'm going to use an example of a pressure cooker. So the geothermal systems are similar when you're utilizing a pressure cooker and you're cooking over a stove. So if you remove the safety pin, steam comes up at high pressure. And this is what is channeled to a power plant to generate electricity. Now that process, we have mastered. It has taken time, more than 30 years. But now geothermal is the electricity that we are consuming at the energy for the nation for over 42%. Geothermal has been very key to the growth of the country because at some point in the late 90s, we had droughts because we were relying mostly on the hydros. And the hydro, if you're not having rains, then it means you're not accumulating a lot of water in your dams. And that means that you'll have a shortage of electricity. So you'll have power rationing. And so that helped fast track geothermal through investments by the government and also by other development partners that have come and partnered and had confidence actually in KenGen, that KenGen can actually be able to drill 3 kilometers into the ground, get the steam, and that steam build a power plant and be able to generate electricity. So that has spurred growth. If you know where Olkaria is, for the times in the early 80s and even late 80s, it was a remote area. Now today, it's one of those areas that you can easily access from Nairobi. It's less than 2 hours. So that development of energy resources at Olkaria, as an example, has made the area to be accessible in terms of infrastructure and in terms of tourism, as you've heard, Hell's Gate. And now we have been able to prove that you can actually have 2 objectives and be able to achieve them very well without one destroying the other. So we do generate electricity, but at the same time, we have the other side with Kenya Wildlife Service having a national park. And by the way, the national park came way after KenGen had started, or at the time, KPC had started its operations. So it's a beautiful site for tourism in that you see giraffes going about their daily business with the zebras, but at the same time, there are power plants that are running 24 hours, 365 days a year, excluding the maintenance, the plant or scheduled maintenance. So that means that the geothermal has been able to be the majority energy that we are consuming at 42% and cushioned us from relying on hydro, which is also a good base load. However, it is not reliable in terms of weather and knowing we are an arid and semi-arid country. So as it says, providing energy for the nation, that helps the country to plan and have industries and be able to grow and have the ripple effect of the economy growing. Now, on a local scale or from the county perspective, one of the things is that whereas they are meant to do the county roads, the water infrastructure to the people, and the reason why counties, I believe, were created is to bring service closer to the people. Some areas, they are a bit more remote, and when the resources come, they might go to where you have more populations. So when we are developing these natural resources, which I felt that God put them a bit far off, remote places, that means you have to make a road. So when we make that road is not being used by us, the investor, or the public company that is doing that, but it's also opening up spaces and economic activities for the people around. When these projects are coming and they are massive, they create direct job opportunities for the people. For the communities, they don't just get the low level, what you can call casual jobs, but we also have professional jobs that also open up because of having this energy being developed. We need engineers, we need supply chain, we need IT, we need geophysicists like myself. And so what happens is that the communities also get to know of these professional courses, and you feel like, oh, I want to go study not just engineering, mechanical engineering. So it has meant that the people or the communities around have been able to develop capacity that can serve directly in this company. And we also have an agreement with them in that sometimes it's not just the company which is doing these developments, but you have contractors. We have a requirement that they must be able to do to demonstrate that they are doing local recruitment. So that means that the economic benefit also remains with the people. Now, where county governments can also work hand in hand with either public utility or private companies that are developing geothermal is to facilitate to have these projects be seamless, like the project acceptance. They have land or sometimes access to the areas where the natural resource is. They'll play a big role because they are more closer to the people, so there will be more public acceptance. There will be more availing the land, and that brings the cost of developing the power to be low, so that now you have the consumers, who are the people, not paying a hefty price for the product once it's transmitted and distributed to the people. So there are very many direct and indirect benefits that come with geothermal, and allow me to be also to go a step ahead to just say geothermal is not just electricity provision. There is heat and there is steam. There's also some industries, or even from cottage industries to large industries, that can benefit from just this direct heat and steam that is coming from the geothermal. And that also is another way of value adds that can promote another industry. And I believe later we shall talk about the energy parks and what we are doing with them to be able to spark growth and to be able to bring more geothermal projects. Because if the demand for electricity is low, then you don't have that justification as generators to actually develop more power projects. But when we are able to sort of tweak the system and attract industry because we have a cheaper power that they can come and set up, localize at the site, then what happens is that it's more attractive, you attract more industry, it is less expensive and also less time consuming. And if there are any challenges, then they're sorted right at the site. So this is one way that is going to really help spur manufacturing and create jobs that are really needed in the country.
So, thank you so much. A very, very insightful presentation. Just to let everyone understand you know, how a geothermal ecosystem and the benefits that accrue from having such system around really is of I just want now to switch to the regulator. In your opening remarks, you alluded to the least cost power development plan. Probably just, elaborate more around that and how counties, based on what also Cynthia has mentioned, what the rest of the panelists have mentioned, especially where counties can really tap in or plug in. How can counties be able to tap this or plug into this plan and for be able to replicate the very essence for which this plan then was did?
Thank you, Norman. I think, as I said, counties by law, they are supposed to do sectoral plans. And one of the sectoral plans is the energy plan. And I think basically the counties have two devolved functions, reticulation and street lighting, as far as energy is concerned. But they also have a function of planning, it's a shared function at the national level, at the county level. That's why they do their own sectoral plans. But ideally, what has been happening is that planning has been happening at the executive level, the national government. And then, of course, it becomes a document called Least Cost Power Development Plan. But, you know, as I said, the energy is not only the secondary energy, because electricity is a secondary energy. It goes through transformation. You either burn fuel, the primary energy, or you burn coal, or you use geothermal. So we also have the primary energy sources like coal, like petroleum, like biomass. So that part of energy has been out of the planning sphere. So I think the INEP, the Integrated Energy Plan, is supposed to belong to that one. And then now counties will have a say about how those primary energy sources are utilized and then how they are transformed into secondary energy sources. But on a second point, because I've seen what we've been seeing is that also in terms of fiscal planning, because that's the planning for budgeting and expenditure, as far as the two functions of counties are concerned, reticulation and street lighting, we've been having a lot of challenges between the national government and the counties as far as, because you find that national government has money through members of parliament. They go and do infrastructure for street lighting. And that money is funded through the National Treasury, Ministry of Energy, and then the MPs go and, of course, they lobby. Each constituency gets allocation, and then you have street lighting infrastructure. So that is the CAPEX. But ideally, it's the county government that are supposed to fund and operationalize the CAPEX and OPEX. So now it becomes a problem that the counties themselves, the governors are not aware about some of those projects, and they are not funded in the budget. So now you have a situation right now, and it's a very difficult situation that Kenya Power has in. You find that the annual cost of street lighting, the bills, it's almost like 850 million in this country. And the project have been initiated by the street lighting infrastructure project have been initiated by the national government and the MPs. The governors are not aware. And then when it comes now paying the actual bills, it's the county that is supposed to pay for those bills. So you find a situation that while now the national government is planning for the physical assets, for the infrastructure, they have not consulted the counties in terms of the cost of the bills, of the electricity bills, and even the cost of doing the O&M. So right now, Kenya Power, actually, they submitted a motion to MPs to have everybody in this country pay for them, pay the electricity bills that the counties, for the street lighting. And I think as EPRA said, that is primarily a devolved function. And you know, resources have followed the function. So if it's the way Kiki said, they have the Commission on Revenue Allocation allocates resources based on devolved function. So you cannot have somebody in Nyakache paying for the street lighting bills for Nairobi City County, while that function has already been devolved and has resources been provided for. So in terms of challenges, I think that is where we are seeing right now, and I think Kenya Power is really trouble in terms of meeting this operational cost of the street lighting and even the electricity bills. So I think that is something that I would say will require And I think we've held that discussion with the Ministry of Energy. And then I think it's kind of having a consensus in terms of how those projects will be appraised and how they'll be developed.
Thank you, Newton. As we were speaking, I was just looking at Wilfred, the Director of Energy, Kilifi County. Umesikia hiyo, yeah? And I know you have tentacles in so that is a message directly from the regulator to ensure that what happens in the counties, especially around the energy states, the governors, just to ensure that the governors, we are all, on the same page. Now, I want to bring, and this I'm looking at Daktari, and I want us to talk, and this is just around the financing and the different financing options we have. Daktari, I seek your indulgence. There is some models that we will need to discuss and see if these are models that really can work. Talking about blended finance, or what we call the green bonds, that counties can be able to adopt to accelerate sustainable energy investments. And I just want us to have a conversation around this. Just as has been put, yes, very beautiful plans, but funding is an issue. So we're looking at what are those funding options that we have. Of course, working closely with the private sector. Maybe you can shed some light around these financing models, and then we see how that goes. Daktari.
Thank you, Norman. Is it on? Is it on now?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Norman. The climate financing is a new thing in this country, and is the in thing for most of the development partners, and is what is most going forward is likely to be the in thing. But for counties to borrow to finance their activities is a complex discussion. It's complex discussion because, one, I don't want director not to throw stones on my side, but there's also an issue of a moral hazard. For you to give Songo as a governor your money as a loan, who is my governor in Nairobi when he was a governor then, many people will not be willing to go that route. Not that he's a bad person, he's a good person, but the perception. So there's a moral hazard that we fear. And also there's an issue of the guarantee that has been given by the executive. So funding counties is complex. That's what I would say. Thank you. And don't take this outside this wall or put in the camera.
Your very brief response to that question. Again, I'm seeing Wilfred was really staring at you because of the nature of this conversation. But I just want to also hear from the man from KEPSA. We are talking about those financing options and all that. And before you respond to this, how about, and this is me, how about convening? Because nowadays we are used to conferences, summits, conversations, and all that. How about convening a conclave, if I may be allowed to use that term? We are good at coining terms, new terms. Having a conclave between the two levels of government, and of course, with National Treasury really playing a prominent role in that, the regulator in this, and just see what is it that can work. What is it that can work? So that then this agenda of ensuring that we have universal power coverage, if I may call it so, really works. But be that as it may, what do you think around this kind of conversation, a structured conversation, to try come up with funding models or opportunities that then will also address what Daktari has mentioned. And it is basically the lack of trust. What Daktari was mentioning, it is lack of trust. Wilfred, unasikia hiyo? Yes, so proceed.
Thank you for that. I think, as actually Dr. intimated earlier, there's no shortage of plans, there's no shortage of schemes, and these conversations have been had and the structures are there. I think the reality is where the rubber meets the road. For the private sector, it's about what's the business opportunity and will the business opportunity make money? So just as Dr. has said, if you're going to put your money where you're not going to get any returns, then that's a no-go. It's as simple as that. So whatever scheme has been formed, because there's supposed to be climate finance for counties, it's there to sort of subsidize some activities, but accessing that money, we don't even know if that money actually gets to the counties. The counties will tell you, yes, it was budgeted, but it never came. So, there's no business. So we can have the conclave, we can talk, we can. But the bottom line is, can we do business? And under the prevailing circumstances of the structure, it's a no.
That is, before, I don't know if Wilfred has got something as we...
We will continue trying, though. We haven't given up, but it's slowing down, things.
Yes,
okay,
the climate finance is there. The challenge is that trust, and the bigger issue would be, do we really want counties to be the investors, or do we want them to facilitate the investment? Because if counties facilitate investments and our colleague then does the actual investments, it may go far. That's what I would say.
Which we are ready to do. It's that facilitation.
Yeah, which
the countries need to be facilitated to facilitate you.
Wilfred, I think, should be here. I know you're here, but you should be here. Yeah? So there's the issue of trust. County's role, facilitate, but not be the investor. As you have heard, this is a typical businessman, yeah? Typical businessman. Do you have any reaction to what Daktari has mentioned and the guy from KEPSA? Can we give Wilfred a mic so that then, and from the floor, does anyone have a burning, oh yes, the lady in a green t-shirt? And is that yellow? What? Najua color. I'm a bit colorblind. Orange. Yeah? Oh, yes, from Vihiga County. Yes, Wilfred.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for our panelists for the insights that they have given. I want to appreciate and accept that subnational governments have their own challenges when it comes to resource management, and our devolution is still new. We are still building our counties. But if we look at our constitution, the reason as to why Kenyans wanted a devolved government unit, they wanted to see change, they wanted to see development. And today, if you move across all the counties, things that would have taken 200 years for this country to obtain, today we have achieved them. So I think the national government, they should step in their mandates, do the capacity building, support the counties, establish the structures, and allow these counties to implement their functions fully. And I believe we will see a huge difference if we do that. So I think national government, support the counties, and you'll see the change. But give us the structures and the platform to do that. Thank you.
That is a comeback from the county, eh? There was a lady who wanted to pose a question over there. Is there any other person who would like to? Oh, yes, there are two from this end. Yes. Your name?
Okay.
And yes.
Thank you so much. Aquila Luanga, Director in charge of Environment, Energy and Natural Resources in the County Government of Vihiga. So first of all, I'm glad somebody mentioned Grace from Mbale. And I was proud she's mentioned in the national platforms, but as a county, we do not even know her. You see, there's already a gap because as a county, we need to identify these champions at our local level to help us drive the agenda at the county level. But the information is up there. The opportunities are up there. But here at the county, we have several needs. We need to address them. For example, in Vihiga, we do not have the, what should I call them? We have the LPG stations and the petrol stations, but do not have the refilling stations and the major investments, which we really feel they should go down to the county level. However, somebody said there is resources, but the counties are not seeing them. I don't know where they are. And it means National Treasury, you should be able to help us access these opportunities. She mentioned that counties have abundance of resources, which is a fallacy. We are also struggling to get this private sector to be fully involved in our planning framework. So my key concern is how can we leverage on the opportunities that are out there, which we are not accessing, so that we can have the enabling environment for the private sector to adequately invest in our counties. That is the challenge we are having, because opportunities are there. Biogas, you call them, LPG, they are there. In fact, Viga, we have a model biogas. I don't know if the private sector know that, and it is a potential which we can use to enhance further investment. So my key concern is National Treasury, help us access these opportunities. We do not necessarily need the money. We just need to access the opportunities to change the lives of our people, not the money. We just want to change the lives of our people. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Director. As you're speaking, the lady is called Grace from Vihiga. So I was looking at the notes that I have from the gentleman. He's called Stanley Okati. Now, what Stanley said is Stanley here. That is, let me tell you, just in the nick of time, alisema nyinyi muko hostile. The gentleman is there. Now, Stanley, the question and the challenge that you raised, because we need to have these conversations. There is the director of environment, environment in Vihiga. There is something that you mentioned. She is not aware of Madam Grace and that beautiful story that you told us. I want her to hear it from you. Then you can be able to continue that conversation. Do you have the mic? You can give to Stanley. We have to have these conversations.
This is interesting. Madam, we are very much available in your market. I'm sure you know Mengas. Do you? Do you use Mengas? You don't use Mengas. We are in Mengas. I mean, we are in Vega every other day. Madam Grace is a lady we met far back in the year 2014. Madam Grace was a retired teacher, 56 years then. We met Grace. That time I was still doing marketing because I'm also a marketer by profession. And she had a small shop and we encouraged her that she could stock gas. But she said, I don't have that money.
Continue. Just help him with another mic or assist him. Yeah. So there is something as we wait for that mic to be fixed. There is something from.
So I'm actually surprised that you're asking the national government to facilitate you or to help you attract. You don't need the money, you just need them to help you facilitate. I think the reality is the fact investments go where there's opportunity and investments go where they're welcome. So it's clearly in your court to make it interesting for an investor to come. So for example, Mengas came on their own. You're saying you're surprised you're hearing about them. I'm sure if you knew about them then and introduced them to 10 graces, Vihiga would have been much further. So yes, I acknowledge, and I've worked with counties, there's some competence and resource issues at the counties. But if you want to be different, it is you to drive the process of making it attractive for investors to come in. So it's not Daktari, it's you.
So proceed.
Please.
So, Madam Grace, we stocked her. We gave her a cage branded men gas for visibility purposes. We gave her 10 pieces of 6 kg and 5 of 13 kg. And within that month, we confessed here that Grace managed to make a net income of 11,000 shillings. And I also did mention earlier that the next month it was 23. She did come to Kisumu to open one for her daughter in Mamboleo after she realized this was a good business for her. Today, we are saying Grace is earning 86,000 shillings. And Grace is still our good friend, though she's now tired, maybe because of ailment due to age. And we really use that as a way of encouraging anybody else that this is an opportunity that if you take can change your life. Because when you retire at 56, she never earned that money when she was working as a teacher, but now she's able to live her life comfortable because customers cast to her doorstep. And we even encourage her to get a motorbike because we encourage the last mile delivery. You have customers who call and you deliver to their door. That is how much gas has become available. And so we always go by the slogan that gas, kama, siyo men gas. And we are very frequent in Vihiga. And again, the issue I was mentioning about harassment by county officials. Probably you'll be in the office, you don't know this, but your officers, this is a branded car. And when you see a branded car, that means that is an organized business institution. You can give them an invoice. You can ask them, please come to your office, or where do we visit you for payment of that? Because I'm sure Vega, I think we paid about 70,000 for distribution and as well as other permits. That is not small money. And we were saying it's eating into us because we are paying every other county that much. So all we're asking for is friendliness to make business investors feel free to come to your place. We are not far from you. We are less than 20 kilometers, right? Because we are based in Mamboleo. Yes. Asante sana bwana moderator.
Thank you very much. I can assure you, after this, you will not experience those problems. Madam Sindio, si maneno namna hiyo. There was a gentleman who had kindly, and then I would like, once the gentleman asks the question or seek clarification, give a minute each to our panelists, and then we wrap this up. However, the conversation shall still continue. Yes. Your name and where you come from.
Thank you. My name is Felix Odhiambo Akelo from Kisumu County. I'm the energy planner. I also do energy resource mobilization. Everything about energy, I do the other side. I think it's unfortunate that now the Treasury is feeling like they're afraid of the counties, yet they're supposed to facilitate counties because if you look at what even the buyer was saying, there is no way we have a devolved system in the country, then the person supposed to cascade money feels they're afraid of the counties. If there is a problem with a specific country like what we've addressed, can you go and address that? Because as we sit now, Kisumu County, I know by within a lot of forums, I think hit action, you're doing that, you're mentioning that from Kenzen. What you're saying is counties are the closest to the people. We are sitting here, government, multinational, and other stakeholders, but we see we don't have community. We are representing community here now. So the money you're talking about, if it doesn't get to us, what you're talking about in terms of private sector, the community can't see that. In Kisumu, what she was mentioning is not really that, leave alone the issue of the gas. The counties now are not asking for the funds because we're talking about climate finances. And when you're afraid of counties, you go ahead and tell the funders to now go per county. So pesa haikuji. We need to stop that. That is a very clear statement. What we need to do is very simple. Can we make money be able to reach the people? Even us, we don't need the money. We need the money to get the people and the private sector. That is what I'm saying from Kisumu side. Yes.
You know, when the gentleman mentioned he's from Kisumu County, I knew you would come to the help of a sister from Vihiga County. And because you've directed your bullets, Mishale kwa daktari, I'm sure you have a response.
Yeah, thank you, sir. In terms of devolution, it is the best thing that happened for Kenya. There's no discussion about that. There's no discussion whether devolution is working or not working. The question that was asked was, how can counties benefit from climate financing? that is a different ballgame. But in terms of whether devolution is working or devolution is not working, you will see the first tarmac in 1 year out of devolution. You see the first tarmac in Turkana. There's no discussion whether devolution is working or it's not working. That I don't think there's any Kenyan that can discuss that. But in terms of whether now every county can be accessed to borrow, I know Laikipia was very close to borrowing. It had done extremely very well. But now they have slowed down. The challenge with borrowing is trust issue. And the next challenge of borrowing is, do people believe if there be a change tomorrow, you have a fishery boss today, he changes tomorrow, do they believe you will pay? Because again, borrowing is more than 5 years. Do they believe that transition, next person will pay? That becomes an issue. And therefore, until counties probably are 20, 30 years old, it may take time. The challenge number 3 for county to borrow is anything they borrow has to be guaranteed by national government. Does national government have a scope to facilitate them to borrow? Because when you are guaranteed, then it becomes a different issue. So the discussion, don't take it out of context. It is not about whether counties are working or not, no. It's about whether counties can attract climate financing, which has come with very complex requirements. Even normal businesses, I don't think a business of borrowing below 50 million can qualify because the conditions are quite complicated. Yes.
Trust. This relationship, trust is really an issue. Because trust is an issue. The gentleman and lady, Meskia, trust is at the center of all this maneno around financing. So again, this is a discussion that shall continue. I believe, Daktari, that was sort of like your last word as we wrap up.
No, yes. That was a question, sir. My last bullet is, I wish the president is very keen on planting trees, but you can help him plant trees by not cutting. This being an energy conference discussion, is there a way that counties can help us train the youth to do the biogas, that they stop cutting trees and then we end up planting more trees by not cutting? Because the one we are planting now, I'm not sure how many are surviving. But if we don't cut that which is there, I think we may plant more than 30 billion. How can you help us there? I think that is my parting shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari. Cynthia, your parting shot.
Okay. Yeah, I think I wanted to just mention before I can give my parting shot also to Vihiga County that you spoke about enabling environment, and I think it begins from all of us, yourselves as a county government and the private sector, but more so on the county government, because you need to ensure that doing business is easy in your regions, in your areas. So that's the basic that you can offer first and foremost before anything else, because as the private sector, our activities of advocacy, capacity building and all that go towards enabling the business environment. So if we are able to work together, but to make it easier for the entrepreneurs, my boss, and I'm calling Bernardo Sawa my boss because he's my chairman in the energy sector in KEPSA, spoke about money follows money. When you make the path straight, when you make things easy, then you'll find investors wanting to invest in your county. So let's have these conversations. Please have my number. I think there's much more that will be coming down to your county. However, I'll still want to encourage the counties that in your conversations, make renewable energy a conversation that cannot pass whenever you're having your meetings. And by that, just ensure that you also get champions within the county who are able to also help out when the private sector walks in and helps you with capacity building, these people, apart from your non-technical staff, these people are able to actually help you still continue speaking about this and making sure that people are aware, because awareness is a big thing. We are not aware, so we do not know, so we'll not even adapt, we'll not even buy this, we'll not even seek to understand what's happening out here. Social economic impact, I think in everything that we do, right from the national level to the county levels, what is the impact we are creating to the community? Dr. Hannah talked about some of the things that GDC is doing, KenGen, and that is how they are creating an impact into the community. So even if we are looking at all these plans that have not been implemented and how we are going to implement them, but what's the impact? What are we saying? There's a lot of conversation here of productive use of renewable energy. And I think there's much more that you can do. In Vihiga, you have very good weather. Sorry, I'm using it as an example. You have very good weather. You can encourage farmers to have solar pumps in their farms. You can encourage them to have solar lighting even in their farms. There's a lot that is going on that we just need to tap into it. And some of these organizations, the private sector, Kenya Renewable Energy Association, I think we are ready to work with partners and take them through the journeys. We usually have an intergovernmental committee meetings, which we do every quarter, and that involves all the ministries, including environment, but that's at the national level. So I'll make sure that the next IGC that we are having on productive use of renewable energy and regenerative agriculture, we're going to invite you so that you can also hear what happens in these sessions. But thank you very much.
Yes, Nito.
Thank you, Chair. I think my parting shot would be just to urge counties that energy is a shared function. So I think for many, many years, I think counties have tended to look at energy as a function of the national government. They have left it to Kenya Power alone. They have left it to the Ministry of Energy alone. But I think it's upon them also to identify resources at the local level. For example, what is the wind speed in my county? Is it able to generate wind energy? Do we have enough irradiation in this county? How can I tap into the wind, solar, and all other forms of generation that are available in your local areas? We have small rivers. I know, Norman, there are so many investors who are selling this kind of opportunities. They go to the counties, they identify a site, and then they come to the Ministry of Energy. They say, now you need to have a PPA. But the local counties, even the county government, they can do what you call captive generation to supplement, instead of just getting power from Kenya Power, even for powering their own offices, they can still utilize their own local resources and then tap into that. Right now we have something called net metering. If you're existing Kenya Power customer, you're able to put up your own wind, solar, and then supply power to the grid and then get the same power when you don't have your local generation. So those are the kind of thought that the county need to look into, and then also plan for the expenditure in terms of the operational cost and the capital cost of some of these devolved functions like street lighting and reticulation.
Yes, thank you very much. I think for me, I'll have like two parting shots. One, we were able to, or Cynthia alluded to, ensuring we have technical capacity. One of the things that would benefit the counties is to have specializations such as engineering and geotherm and like geologists, because I have seen that, for example, in some areas, if we go and develop geothermal resources, at those areas you'll also find minerals, you'll also find other natural resources. So that integrated plan of being able to benefit from the total natural resource that is in an area will be important. And then you can also have more interactions. For companies like ourselves, KenGen and GDC, if you can drill 3 kilometers into the subsurface, I mean, what is a few hundred meters if you're looking for groundwater? You notice that sometimes when you're planning for cities and planning for people, we're extracting a lot of groundwater from the subsurface, and the effect is quite devastating because you destroy the aquifers by sinking the ground or subsidence. Now, these studies, you can only know the impact of that on cities if you have expertise. So it is good that also the counties leverage on the companies that within, like the energy companies or even the private sector, so that they can have an integrated way to benefit from their resources. The other thing I would say is that from the grid solutions, if we develop more geothermal resources, and I'm a champion for geothermal, then we can also have grid solutions that we can also have people cooking with electricity, and that will save on our forests. I think this is not a distant dream, but we can be able, geothermal is cheap very much in the long run. So it can be able to be sustainable and available for households and also for industry. And also stabilize the grid. Because even if we develop more wind and more solar, if you take it to the grid, it will make the grid unstable. So if you have the base loads of geothermal, then you'll have stable power in the grid. So that is my parting shot. And saying that Kenya at 91% being green energy, I believe we can also go 100% green energy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moderator, I think in my parting shot, I'd be talking to the counties and COG particularly. In terms of your planning, I think you need to see energy as an enabler. So whatever you plan, there's an energy component. Do not leave it out for the end. I mean, we've seen some plans where there's an IT program coming with its own power supply. There's a school program coming. I mean, it's duplication that's not necessary. So in your planning at the county level and you're doing your CIDPs, energy is an enabler and an integral part of the plan. Make sure that's done. Cynthia said about investments. I think what private sector is looking at is two things. Ease of doing business, which is a county's responsibility to invite us, and the cost of doing business, which also depends on how hungry, how greedy, I mean, I don't know which other word to use, the county is. Because if there's ease of doing business, but the cost is too high, then it's still not attractive. So counties need to look at both. What's the ease of doing business in your county, and what's the cost of doing business in your county? If you can optimize those, then the money will flow, as she says. Again, to Treasury and COG, we need to align our plans and the incentives as well. So, you know, there's all these incentives like climate finance, you know, that Treasury has access to. But if we are not aligned with the county priorities, then the money won't come. And please do not blame him. Before he releases the money, there's a checklist, a compliance checklist that must be met. If you don't meet even one, it's not daktari. It's you fail the test and therefore you don't get the money. So aligning your plans from CIDP to ADP to the financing strategies, those need to be aligned. So maybe, daktari, we need to have that conclave, but it's not about what to do. It's more about how to do. Because what we've also seen is counties coming up with initiatives that are noble, but which also create opportunity for the private sector. So all well. But the intention is not real. There's a hidden agenda. So you get in there, whoever has cooked up the plan or put together the plan, it sounds very good, the intentions are good, but the reality on the ground is what you end up with is not what it should be. So the framework is there, the pieces are there. I think it's more about aligning them and getting them to work. And the money from the private sector will flow. Thank you.
It is about how to. And I am glad that my idea of a conclave is welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, when we started, my parting shot will be the same as my starting shot. I had titled, okay, Stella,
Thank you.
Yes.
Before you give your parting shot, because we cannot speak after you, just to alert the public that next week EPRA will be carrying out public participation on regulations, upstream regulations. So next week there will be people in Monday for the coastal counties. Then from there they will be in Garissa for the northeastern countries on Wednesday. And then at the end of the week, it will be in Meru for Central Province. Now, if there are any issues counties have with the ongoing Petroleum Act, and if you have maybe upstream resources in your respective county, please participate. The public notifications have been sent out. We have communicated to the Council of Governors as well. So we expect a heavy county participation in this exercise. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you so much. Any other person before? I had to give Stella that chance, being the convener of this very, very important discussion that we've had. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now cap it here. And just before we end this, like I mentioned, my parting shot will be the same as my starting shot, and had titled this whole conversation, because you're talking about counties, you're talking about mashinani. I had titled it Energizing Our Communities. It is as simple as that. So I want you, all of us here, to just imagine where the daily chores of gathering firewood or charcoal is a distant memory. Just imagine a home or homes where clean, affordable, reliable flame is just a turn of a knob away. Just imagine transforming kitchens and improving lives. And of course, at some point, Stanley alluded to how grace. So these are very relatable stories. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is the future we were talking about this morning. This is the future we were talking about this morning. A future where every Kenyan family has access to modern energy. Just imagine. Ladies and gentlemen, asanteni sana. Thank you for being a very wonderful audience. Thank you also to our panelists. I just want to also register my appreciation to the convener of this very, very insightful conversation, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. My name is Norman Mudibo. I've been your moderator, and thank you for listening. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. God bless. Asanteni.